my wife was sitting on the floor in the guest bedroom and she was crying. And she looked at me and she just said, "I have cancer."
Please meet Jonathan Goodman, who is the entrepreneur who has redefined online fitness. He's penned 12 game-changing books.
Books fire.
And he lives life very much by his own rules.
2021, I fired everybody and I started over. And I just needed room to breathe. Life is a series of trade-offs. What's important is that you choose the game that you want to play, appreciating the rules of engagement of that game.
Why do you want a book?
There are a lot of different reasons to write a book.
Hey, Matt here, just interrupting myself to say, can you believe that 62% of listeners to this podcast don't actually subscribe? Now, I know you like it because you listen to it, you come back and the stats are great, but 62% of you don't actually subscribe. So make sure you subscribe, whether that's on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to your content or watch your content, and make sure that you never miss a future episode.
Guys, Matt Haycox is here for another episode of No Bollocks with me, Matt Haycox, and I have got a great guest with me in the house tonight, in the virtual house, because he's all the way from Mexico via Toronto. I'm here in Dubai. Jonathan Goodman is here with me. Jonathan's an entrepreneur. He's an author. He's a business owner. He is, he's a guy who lives life on his own terms. He's suffered the bad shit whilst making the big money, ups and downs, lots to talk about. We had kind of 15 or 20 minutes talking before we started recording this, and definitely a guy with a great vibe. And I'm excited to get deep into this conversation. And despite the fact, I think 12 books you've written, isn't it, Jonathan? 12 books.
I mean, it depends. It depends how you count. Whether you count the good ones or whether you include the bad ones as well. 12 if you include all of them. I would say 5 or 6.
We'll go with the big number, 12 books. But he's got another one coming out soon, which is obviously one of the reasons we're here today. And we'll talk about that at the end. But look, thanks a lot for being here. And listen, I want to jump in with something.
What's that?
To kick us off, right? And I had a few notes and obviously some prep sheets from this. And one of the things that you talked about on these notes was that you have found. These are your words. Your angle is that you found the right pace for you. And forgive me while I read this out for the people watching and listening. You said this means mornings are for writing, never miss breakfast or dinner with the family, 3 to 5 workouts a week. You bike everywhere. You don't actually operate any of your companies. You found great people and you compensate them well. And you live abroad for 4 to 6 months of the year, exploring the world. And yeah, it really hit me because I think it's something that's quite personal to me at the moment as well. That so I'm 43 years old. I've been in business for 25 years. I am what I think most people would call successful because I use the word the words that we said just before we started recording. I think success is misdiagnosed. Success. Typically just corresponds with money. If you're successful, you have money. But I always say, despite the fact that I may look successful, I don't think anyone I'd really want to live my life if they actually knew what it was like and got stuck into the fact that I can't ever put my phone down, the fact that the sleepless nights, the stress, the worrying about this, that, and the other. And over the last 6 or 7 months, and this is you've heard it here first. I've been stuck in a couple of quite heavy lawsuits, which have distracted my time, but on the one hand, but also focused me on the other. And when I say distracted my time, it's kept me away from work. Kept me away from positive work, certainly. But what it's made me do, or kind of almost like forced me into, is some of the things that maybe I didn't realize how much I wanted to do. I've spent so much time with my particularly my youngest daughter. My eldest daughter lives in the UK, but I spent so much time with my kid. I'm playing paddle tennis every day, hammering the gym, reading books, watching Netflix. Obviously not a popular thing for internet entrepreneurs, but watching Netflix, but doing the things that I want to do. And it's been a big realization to the fact that, I was like, what the fuck? We talk about wanting to have our own businesses to escape the rat race, but then having our own businesses can often be almost like a faster hamster wheel and a faster rat race. And it's really made me think, I need to make some massive changes because I could have all the monetary success in the world, but I haven't been enjoying the life I've been living. And I'm starting to try and really nail down onto that. So when I started to read these words of yours, it hit me hard from something personally. And I thought that's the first thing that we're going to talk about. So yeah, have you always lived that life you want, or has this been a realization for you too?
I think it's been a progressive progress. I mean, look, life is a series of trade-offs. I'm not the first person to say that. A lot of us reach a point at one stage after we've reached some element of success in whatever we're doing, however you want to define success, you know, the success that most of us grew up desiring. We reach this point where we go to bed exhausted, and we wake up in the morning and we say, I got to do this again. You know, and then we go to bed at night again and we're exhausted and we're thinking, what did I just accomplish today? Whereas what we should be doing is we should be going to bed tired, not exhausted, like ready for sleep. Don't get me wrong. We should work hard. We should live the hell out of every single day. But we should wake up the next morning excited to do it again. And so, yeah, has it always been that way? I mean, it's been a search. I think, Matt, you know, it hit me a number of years ago where, you know, where this book starts, the story that this book starts was kind of a year and a half or so into COVID. I wrote the literal textbook for online fitness. I had the only legitimate curriculum at that time teaching people in the fitness industry how to work online. And it's weird to say this, but if you were to ask me before COVID happened, like, close your eyes and think to yourself, what do you think is the best thing that could possibly happen to your business, no matter how rare or random or unbelievable it might be? I might have said to you some inexplicable, unexpected event that forced every single trainer out of the gym to work online. And that's what happened. And so you can imagine how quickly the pace of my life sped up in my business. I mean, I was on the phone with North America during the day, all day, when the gym shut down, and then Singapore and Hong Kong and Australia at night in licensing conversations. In you know, companies wanted to buy us, companies wanted to license our things. People just needed basically the one thing that we uniquely had, and you know, I didn't really know what I was doing. Call it altitude sickness. There's something to be said about slow growth or acclimatization in business versus everything happens all at once and you climb the mountain too fast and you never have time to come back down and acclimatize yourself. And then, I mean, I came home one day and things were moving fast, and my son, at this point I only had one child, and my son was playing by himself in the living room, and his name's Calvin. And I came home and Calvin said, "Mommy's sad." And I thought that they had, you know, had a fight or something like that. And so I went upstairs and in the guest bedroom, and my wife was sitting on the floor in the guest bedroom and she was crying. And she looked at me and she just said, "I have cancer." And I mean, we just fell into each other's arms.
Had she been sick in the run up to this?
No symptoms. My wife is a naturopathic doctor. And so she had felt that there was like kind of a lump in her throat. She asked me to feel it. I said, "I don't feel anything." She said, "You know, I'm still going to get it checked out." We didn't think anything of it. She had a kind of a scan, and she said, "I know they're going to see something because I know that there's something there." So of course, when that came back positive, she says, "I know going to see something. I know there's going to be a biopsy. I don't think it's anything to worry about." And then, so that of course happened. We still didn't think anything of it. They took the biopsy and it came back as cancer. Cancer is the type of thing that you know exists, but you always just assume it happens to somebody else. You're never quite ready for it. And so at the same time as the business was moving so fast I could hardly keep up, in good ways and in not good ways. Expenses were exploding. I'd made some very expensive bad hires, software commitments that were in retrospect idiotic. But then my family needed me at the same time. I mean, we just had to figure this out. And so, what was it? September 2021, I fired everybody and I started over. And it sounds like your story a little bit, Matt, is kind of parallel to mine in some ways, what you described. I don't wish cancer on anybody, but I'm not the first to tell you that something bad like cancer or a lawsuit has a habit of calling you out on your shit.
And when you fired everybody,
it has a habit of forcing you to reassess. I fired everybody, man. I just needed room to breathe. Is what I didn't know what the next steps were going to be.
But it wasn't so much that the business was broken. It's that you didn't know where you were at, and you needed to take a step back.
The business, we had a lot of sunk cost in the business. The world had changed a lot, and we had not changed with it. I'll give you an example. I ran the biggest blog in the world for personal trainers for a number of years. So from, call it 2013 to 2019, 2020, we were getting 4 to 6 million uniques a year for like a niche industry blog. This is not advertisements. This is organic. Yeah. That was great. Email lists of 100,000 plus, big social media accounts, all that kind of stuff, right? And I was spending $1 million plus on free content. Before it was cool to spend $1 million plus on free content. Like I call it, I was a creator before the word creator existed. We didn't call it that back in the day, but that's, I guess, what I was. I was syndicating other people. I was writing my own stuff. I was publishing other stuff for other people, but we just didn't adapt to the way that the world is. And so we kept trying to figure, and the same thing with most of our business was a do-it-yourself course at that point. Do-it-yourself courses, I think, have some opportunity, but they're nowhere where they used to be in terms of just market sensibility. I mean, people just don't really want do-it-yourself courses. They're either serious about a thing or they're not serious about a thing. If they're serious about a thing, they hire a coach. If they're not serious yet about a thing and deciding whether they want to be serious about a thing, maybe they'll buy a book or an ebook or, peruse free content for a while until they decide that this is the thing they want to do, or do what most people do, which is not do anything. They're not going to buy a do-it-yourself course. And so this product that we had that really, had made, I still think that I'd probably produced one of the most successful of all time online niche courses, generated tens of millions of dollars in profit. And we effectively sold the same course. We iterated on it, but we effectively sold the same course from 2013 to 2020. I don't know many courses that have stood the test of time that way online. But just for
the guys listening and watching, so your core business was, or potentially still is, teaching trainers how to make more money as a trainer.
It's serving people in their career in the fitness industry. That course was called the Online Trainer Academy. It still exists. It's still out there. It still sells. We don't actively promote it. And that was basically how to transition from in-person training and begin to adopt an online model. Probably not escape in-person training. But
in 2013, in 2013, that's well before it's fashionable to be an online trainer. Obviously, the whole model now is online training. But back then it must have been pretty fresh.
The first course that I put out in it was 2012. Yeah. My job back then, if you look at the old Eugene Schwartz model of market sensibilities, right? My job was to make the market. Quite literally. I was the first person to speak at almost all of the major certifications, industry publications and stuff, basically yelling off of the rooftops that, yes, you can do this thing realistically, sustainably, reliably, and responsibly online. And people hated me for it. Holy shit, people hated me for it. Now, of course, it's obvious, right? In retrospect, it always is. But my job was to make the market. And so part of what we did not do over the years was adapted to the market conditions changing. I no longer need to make the market. Now I need to stand out in the market. When everybody, as a result of COVID that had 10,000 Instagram followers, all of a sudden became an online fitness business expert. And so, my business was kind of stacking and is still stacking congruent businesses on top or beside one another, all serving the same audience. So we have books on the bottom. We've got that course, call it like 0 to 5, 0 to 10,000. We've got a high-end mentorship that'll take people to $1 million plus a year. And then we have a software platform that we've got 43, 44, 45,000 users in. And it's all for, personal trainers and
talk to me about the books, because I and I'm sure many of my audience listening to this,
Sure.
understand the model of books in the context of the world's best business card on one hand, or
Sure.
A lead magnet on the other, leading to a sale of something else further up the ladder.
Yes,
but I mean, look, you've got 12 books. Or 5 good ones, and
there's a textbook, there's a children's book, all different stuff.
But I mean, obviously, whether we count it 5 or whether we count it 12, you've done more than one. So I guess you've got past that concept of having a book as a lead magnet, or having a book for the sake of being able to say that you're an author. Talk to me about your book model. Both in terms of how you use that in the business, how you monetize that, and also the publishing behind it.
I love this question. I could give a week-long seminar on this question. So I'm going to skim over some stuff. And if you want me to go deeper into anything, y'all just ask. Because I have produced and sold books every single way you could possibly imagine. I've self-published. I've conventionally published. I've sold them, conventional self-publishing on Amazon. I've done print on demand. I've recorded my own audiobooks. I've hired voice actors. I've done free plus shipping promotions. I've written books as sales letters. I've done there are 2 links in some of my books that are affiliate promotions that have generated me alone $1.2 million just in affiliate promotions inside my books that have done that. So I've used books to generate affiliate commissions. I've edited my books because when you self-publish, you could edit the manuscript. As I came out with new programs, I'll edit the books and edit the material in the book and the advertisements and interstitial stuff to include mentions of other programs, content upgrades, lead magnets, everything. So the process really, I think, and this is what I would advise to anybody, is you want to start self-publishing for a few reasons. Number one is probably no traditional publisher is really going to put that much behind you before you've already sold a bunch of books or already sold.
Just to interrupt, just go one step further. Sorry, one step more backwards, right? You say you want to start self-publishing because obviously, I guess that's the most realistic route. But why do you want a book? As in, before you're even going to self-publish, why has someone decided they want a book?
I mean, you might not. I write books because it's a masochistic habit that I can't quite explain. You might not. There are a lot of different reasons to write a book, right? You could write a book because it's a calling card if you want to be a speaker. You could write a book because it's just a really easy way for somebody who hears about you from somewhere else to investigate whether you might be somebody that they want to go deeper with. If you have, call it a service, like a high-end service, it's just a nice calling card, sales letter. You can help somebody take 1 or 2 steps in the right direction. But to be completely honest, Matt, probably if you don't feel a pull to write a book, you should not write a book. I don't think so. I think that there are other ways that are perhaps quicker and better to build just about any kind of business, unless you want to be maybe a professional speaker.
And you wrote yours all yourself, or you used ghostwriters or semi-ghost writing in any way?
So that's an interesting question. I have 3 books that I did get ghostwritten. And the process, those were not my first, they were in the middle. They're fine. They were a good business decision. I don't care about those books enough to even display them on my own shelf. And so they were done as a way, they were done as a business effort, not as something that's going to make me personally better. I think perhaps the best reason to write a book is to get better personally and to force you to think about the way that you're operating, whether it's business, whether it's personal, in a deeper capacity. When you get a book ghostwritten, that doesn't happen. And so I do have 3 books ghostwritten. They were strategic. We basically wanted to do like a For Dummies series. So we called it the Highly Wealthy Online Trainer series, right? And so the Wealthy Trainer's Guide to Getting Started, to Online Training, and then to Getting Clients and Referrals are the 3 names for those books. And they're good books. But the way that those were written is I had a ghostwriter who was phenomenal. And him and I together made a huge table of contents. And then in that table of contents, I went and I pulled in all this information. Here's blog posts I've already written on the subject. Here's a quick audio snippet about it. Here's a podcast I've already recorded. Here's somebody who knows about that thing for you to interview. When it comes time, ask me for an introduction, whatever. And the ghostwriter just went down the list and cranked out that book. Those books are fine. Like I said, they're not books that I'm proud of personally, but people still get use out of them and people benefit from them and they still sell. All of my other books were written by me. This next book, like grueling, 3 years of my life. I just actually.
When you say 3 years, I mean, what does that really mean? I mean, like 20 hours a week for 3 years, or a couple of hours here and there when you're in the mood.
That means that book was my priority, which means that my best hours of the week are to that piece of work. So what was for me, first thing in the morning. I'm a morning guy, so I like to wake up at 5, 6 in the morning before my family wakes up. By the time that everybody else wakes up, my brain is a jumble. By the time that the rest of the world wakes up business-wise, my brain is a jumble. So 5, 6 in the morning, I'll write for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then I will try to write a little bit in the middle of the day if I can find the time, but I usually don't. But hour and a half, 2 hours, call it 5 days a week if I can do it. Usually I like doing a Saturday or Sunday, and then I might take like a Wednesday to rest or sleep in. Today is a Thursday. Today I actually slept over in this hotel, not in the same place as my family. So I was with my family all the last night. We put my kids to bed. I came to this hotel, to a hotel room, and I actually finished the first draft of my next book. So today is unique in that some days I'll take it and I'm like, this is no holds barred. I'm going to drink as much coffee as I need to drink. And I'm going to wake up at 6 or 7 in the morning, and I've basically been going straight till, we started speaking, which is 2 p.m. my time. And I finished the draft. But most days, Matt, to answer your question, it's my best hour or 2 hours of the day is dedicated either to writing or to editing or to building basically marketing assets or marketing strategy, something to support, call it my authorship career, which I have decided is my priority, which includes trade-offs. You asked me at the beginning, the pace of the life. Part of the pace of my life and why I feel like I'm in a good pace is I have become comfortable that this writing thing is my thing right now. And everything that I do points towards that, appreciating that there are trade-offs where the other businesses, I put somebody else in charge, to be honest, they go quicker because the other people are probably better at growing businesses than I am. But I don't take as much money out of the business because I give them incredible profit shares and incentivization structures. But the trade-off is it fills my cup, right? By focusing my best hours on what I've decided to be my one thing, right now and for the foreseeable future, which is writing.
So you mentioned the people that run your businesses and how you compensate them very well. Talk to me about that as a strategy, because I mean, look, the bane of my life, and I'm sure the bane of most entrepreneurs' life is recruiting and retaining great people. I mean, obviously compensation is a big part of it. I think there's many other parts of it as well. But you're obviously doing it well. You found a model that works for you. How do you find these people to run the businesses, and how do you incentivize them? Compensate them and retain them?
Sure, there's lots of different elements to that question. The first is to appreciate that this is what I'm about to say is probably not a model that's going to build you a $1 billion unicorn.
Hey, Matt here, just interrupting myself quickly to say thank you for listening to No Bollocks. But did you also know I've got another podcast, Stripping Off with Matt Haycox? Very different. No Bollocks is the quick daily business tactics that you need. But Stripping Off, we go deep, deep, deep with a CEO, with a celebrity, with an athlete, with just an international, inspiring character. We find out what makes them tick, we find out how they got to where they got to, and we find out how you can learn and benefit from them too. So jump on over to Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, wherever you listen to your content, and I'll see you on a future episode.
I have found that there are games that you get to choose to play in business. And what's important is that you choose the game that you want to play, appreciating the rules of engagement of that game, which means that there are different odds of success, reward mechanisms, and time horizons. And so I think that you can pretty reliably build a business that's going to generate $3 to $5 million a year at a 30 to 50% profit margin reliably. Our businesses run actually closer to about a 65% profit margin, but that's just the type of business model. Not every business model lends itself to that. But
and these business models, these are online business models. These are coaching style.
B2B SaaS, and do-it-yourself course and mentorship. Yes, and the key is the B2B SaaS does not have any customer acquisition costs because it's all a flywheel, right? All of the customers for one thing are customers for all the things. And they're all congruent to one another, and either the customers for one are customers of multiple, or they become aspirational to multiple. Somebody enters in one and they aspire to get to the next level, which means that there's no customer acquisition costs as you kind of go up. B2B SaaS, if you have to acquire your customers with paid, you're not going to be able to run it at that profit margin. But also B2B SaaS, if you're aggressive with your growth and you want to build something huge, you also are not. And so I kind of appreciate that there's a limit to that. And so my model is to, every couple of years, if I have a good enough idea to do it, stack another congruent business on top of my existing ones, as opposed to try to grow one thing really, really big, which is counterintuitive to a lot of the advice that you hear out there. And I don't think either of us are wrong. I think they're just different games that we play. So that's just the context through which what I'm about to say is. What I have discovered, Matt, is that one person incentivized really, really well, that is stellar at what they do, will outperform by a marker of at least 10, if not 50 to 100 times, somebody who's just good to okay at what they do, who's getting a salary. And what I love about incentivizing, and so there's a couple of different models. One is more conventional with our sales team, commission structures, right? And commission structures based off of, lead generation, setting calls with the right type of people. You get paid if you set a call, but you get paid more if that call moves on to the second call. You get paid even more if that person actually becomes a customer. You get an extra bonus if that person actually retains and renews as a customer, right? And so incentivizing for not just the short-term behaviors, but the long behaviors that are going to feed the business. Amongst our coaches are paid a very, very low base, in some cases not at all. But then they're incentivized based off of largely retention and success. So we have a marker that we've quantified, that we say this student of ours has become successful in our program once they've hit this marker. As a coach, you get a bonus once your student hits this marker. And then if that student renews, you get an additional bonus. And those bonuses are what pays them so many more times what they would get basically anywhere else. For, a lot of the key members of our team, so for example, I now have a content team. We could talk about investments, but I basically have 4 arms to my personal wealth investment structure. And one of the arms is reputation and personal brand. I believe that is just as important to invest into as stocks and Bitcoin and real estate in our modern world. And so I look at it as that. I look at it as a pillar the same way. And so I put a lot of money in that. So I, have a personal brand team, right? And in recruiting people for this team, number one, I look for people who exist in my blind spots, generally who aren't as old as I am. People who grew up with social media, people who exist more in the creator economy, which I don't even really get what the word creator means. To me, it's like an influencer, an entertainer, and a creator are all the same thing. Maybe they're not, maybe they are, but they exist in that world. They're younger, they have more energy, they're more hungry, perhaps, than I am. And so what I love about, and I can tell you how I structure these things, but what I love about these types of performance-based incentive structures is it self-selects out the wrong type of people that should be in those roles. I'll give you an example. I wanted to bring on a podcast management team for our podcast. And I interviewed a whole bunch of teams, and we found an agency that we thought was going to be good. And they told me what they were going to charge us, and I can't remember what it was. It was like $6,000 a month or something, not unreasonable for what they were going to do. It was like $6,000 a month. And I basically said to them, tell me, can you give me your low, medium, high expectations of what you're going to achieve based off of these metrics that we agreed was important? Right? Downloads, whatever, reach, growth in YouTube. And they gave me their low, medium, high. And I said, okay, so how about this? What are your core expenses? And they said, it's about $2,000, $2,500 a month. I was like, okay, I'll pay you your core expenses. I'll pay you $2,000, $2,500 a month. And then if you hit your minimum of what you say you're going to achieve, I'll top you up to the 6. If you hit the medium goal, I'm going to pay you 10. If you hit your high-end goal, I'm going to pay you 20. And they said, that doesn't work for us. We charge $6,000 a month. And I said, thank you very much. That does not work for me. Because what they demonstrated to me is that they don't believe that they can achieve what they told me that they're going to achieve. Mm-hmm. They basically admitted to me that they were talking out of their ass. They don't believe that they can even hit the low end goals of their metrics. And we gave them like 3 months to hit it, right? Whereas with the 2 key people on my media team, I pay them a very, very low base. Very, very low base. And we did the same thing. Low, medium, high. So, okay, for the book launch, for the Obvious Choice book, what's our low, medium, high goals for pre-launch, like pre-order and first week launch sales? Okay? So, I'm going to pay you in the 4 months leading up to it. I'm going to pay you, it was like a third of what he wanted per month. I'll pay you a third. So like you can eat, you could pay your rent. So like you're good, like you're safe. But if you hit the low goal, basically I top you up to what you said you wanted to earn. If you hit the medium goal, I pay you way more. And if you hit the high end goal, it came out to like $25,000 a month that I would end up paying this guy. In addition, there's a kicker where the other metric that matters for books is Amazon reviews. So the kicker is once we hit 1,000 Amazon reviews, so long as it happens within 5 months of the book being released, you get an extra $15,000 bonus. And so if this guy hits all of the goals, This guy is 19 years old. If he hits all of the goals, I can't remember the exact number but it's like, he's going to be making like $25,000 a month. Right? But that is a serious fire under his ass to work, basically, especially if that person is working, for enough people, to work harder for me, number one, than other people. But also, that's me saying, if you do this and it works, it's worth so much more. If you do this and it doesn't work, it's not even worth anywhere close to the baseline of what you say you want to earn to me. If you do this and it does work, it's worth so much far beyond what you say that this is going to be worth to me, that I'm going to pay you an outlandish amount.
And tell me, obviously, I get the aggressive compensation side of it. Where are you finding these people in the first place? Because I guess I'm sure many people listening to this can very much get with the fact that, okay, if someone performs well and makes me a lot of money, I'll pay them a lot of money. But where do I go and find this person from in the first place?
Okay, so this is where a lot of the conventional advice that we hear about hiring, I think, is good advice that's not good advice for us. Let me tell you a quick story. You know the Four Seasons Hotel? Are you aware of that chain? So the Four Seasons Hotel actually started in the city of Toronto. It was a tiny little hotel started by a guy named Isidore Sharp. And I want to tell you the story about how Izzy Sharp found his first ever employee. Four Seasons has 45,000 employees now. It's completely irrelevant to me how they hire today. But most of the advice that we hear about hiring, how to read, how to interview people, how to put out job postings, how to whatever. That's not how any of these organizations got to where they were. Hiring is one of the single most difficult disciplines on the planet. Even people who make a career out of it that are world class only get it right 1 in 3, 1 in 5 times. You don't stand a chance if you're trying to read resumes and do interviews of making a good decision. And so I don't even try. And so here's what Izzy did is Izzy was going to open up a second hotel, and he needed somebody to manage his first. And so he went to the most successful hotel at that time. I think it was called the Waverly in Toronto. And he went to the general manager of the hotel, and he introduced himself, and he said, "Hi, I'm Izzy. This is who I am. This is what I do. Now, I'm not looking to hire you. It's not why I'm here. But one of the things that I've come to understand is that somebody who performs at a high level, who's excellent in one place, often knows other people who also perform at high levels, who are excellent at what they do. And so I wonder, I'm looking for somebody to manage my hotel that's excellent. Do you know anybody that you can introduce me to?" This general manager introduced him to a man named Ian Munro. Ian Munro, if you look at the history of the Four Seasons Hotel, is almost solely credited in designing the service, the aesthetic, and the general feel and the initial growth of the Four Seasons Hotel chain. And there's lots of examples like that. And so how I find these people, Matt, is I work backwards from where excellence is already being demonstrated. People who do one thing do everything that way. People who buy lots. People who don't buy. People who are excellent in their performance are going to be excellent everywhere that they perform. And so if you know what you're looking for, you be patient and you watch and you look for places where excellence is performed in that same way. And then you figure out what the hell was going on. And so I wanted somebody to help me strategize and design a book launch that feels good, that's human, that's personal, that had a lot of moving pieces in a very, very big way, a lot of money moving around worldwide. And so I watched book launches for a long time, and I understood book launches because I've launched books, and I came across a book launch that I thought was performed exceptionally well. The book itself wasn't interesting to me, but the book launch I thought was performed exceptionally well. So I started to really dig into who was behind it. And I found out that it was this one person, and I reached out to them and I said, "I will pay you whatever you want. Can we work together?" And I did the same thing for my video and my media team. I'm not that interested. You look at a lot of the like thought leaders that are out there today, right? I'm not that interested in somebody who performs well on media and who makes a big platform that is good looking, well spoken, and understands marketing kind of inside and out. It doesn't mean that they don't necessarily have a good media and video team, but they have certain advantages. And so one of the things that I started to notice was the author Robert Greene. His online platform started exploding. It's YouTube, everything like that. Robert Greene is an older guy. He's clearly not a speaker. He's well-spoken enough, but he's clearly not a speaker. He's not somebody who is a marketer through and through. And yet in the last 2 or 3 years, he's basically gone from no online persona to millions of followers. Who the hell's behind that? And so who do you think I hired to do my videos? It's the guy behind Robert Greene's video production and YouTube and social media. So how do you find these people? My answer is you work backwards from where excellence is already being demonstrated, as opposed to putting out things like job postings and stuff. I don't have aspirations to grow big. If I did, I'd have to hire much more aggressively. But instead, one key person like this, I have found can bring in resources if they need to. Like they're used to working alone. They're used to really excelling. And it's worked really well for them. And I don't have to do interviews.
Let me ask you something else. Different direction, change of pace. You've got 2 kids. You got a 2-year-old, a 7-year-old, and one in incubation.
Yes, sir.
I take it, given the fact that you spend 4 to 6 months of the year living elsewhere, I take it you homeschool.
Well, the 2-year-old, we don't do anything. The 7-year-old won't homeschool. No, he is in public school in Toronto. And then when we pick up and leave for the winters, we unenroll him for public school. And we come out to wherever we're going. Last year was a mix between Nicaragua and Mexico. This year is Mexico the whole year. And we bring curriculum books with us. We have a nanny here who was a teacher for a number of years, or my wife. And he has assignments. And then we integrate learning into whatever we're doing. Hey, you get 14 Mexican pesos to $1 Canadian dollar. How much does this cost? In Canadian dollars. Lots of reading, lots of that. And then when we get back, we re-enroll them in school. So we're gone this year from November 21st, I think is the day that we left. And we'll get back the beginning of April. And so we will re-enroll him in public school when we get back. And, he's in grade 2. We take it year by year. If we ever get to a point where we feel like he is falling behind, if he ever comes to us and says, Mommy and Daddy, I think I've had enough, we'll very much have a conversation with him about that.
Okay. So it's kind of half public school, half homeschool in a way. You're taking the curriculum, but you're just doing it at home wherever you are.
Yeah, I have strong opinions on this. I know some people who do the type of thing that I do have very strong opinions against the public school system. I don't. I think that the public school system is wonderful. I think it does a good job. But I also think that there's other types of learning that are also very important. And so, at least for the time being, as he's as impressionable as he is, I think it's very important that we also introduce my son to people who look different, smell different, sound different ways of living. For example, my son is very comfortable selling. He's very comfortable with rejection in selling. And a lot of the reason for that probably is because here in Mexico, where we live, or a lot of the places where we lived, there are a lot of children that he sees selling. They walk up to every single person, and the vast majority of them say no gracias, and they give a smile, and then they walk to the next person, and it's not a big deal. And so that type of thing has now become normalized for him. What an incredible attribute to press upon a young mind. that rejection is perfectly normal. And you should ask for what you want for, and you should be respectful, and you should say thank you if they say no. And then you can move on to the next person. And then you take stock. So my son wanted to make money last year, and so he decided to draw cards. And so he drew cards the first time, and he drew all types of different kinds, and he tried to sell greeting cards. And they didn't sell that well. And then he made a little sign, and he gave a name, Arte de Calvino. His name's Calvin, Arte de Calvino. And he wrote the price on the cards, and he walked around with a box with the price. And all of a sudden, more people bought cards from her. Oh, so a sign, actually, so people know what I'm doing and can come up to me, is useful. Okay, so then he started to calculate and figure out which cards sold more. Oh, actually, the cards where I drew palm trees sold better than the cards that had other stuff. So the next time, what do you think he did? He drew more cards with palm trees. But then they didn't sell as well, because then all the cards had palm trees. So then you know what he did? He made a lot of cards with palm trees, but he kept some of the cards outside of his box. And so in his box, he still had cards with palm trees and cards with hearts and cards with whatever. And then every time that the cards with palm trees would get purchased, he just replaced them. Okay. And then we started to notice that he started to go up to the locals. He started to go up to the vendors here way more than he started to go up to the gringos and the tourists. And I asked him why. Because you would think that the gringos and the tourists would have more money. And he, of course, also doesn't speak Spanish. And he said, well, Daddy, they have change. The other people don't. So, of course, I'm going to go up to them. So think about all of these things that he's learning naturally, right? By doing this of sales and how to make sales. And he went and he learned a phrase in Spanish, will you buy my art? And he walks up to people and he asked them in Spanish, will you buy my art? He then started recruiting. Then he did it on Valentine's Day and figured out that on Valentine's Day he could sell a lot of cards, but he knew that the palm tree cards sold well, so he drew Valentine's cards, but they had palm trees on them. And he knew that it was going to be busy, so he recruited a couple local kids to work with him. And they expanded their operations. And he figured out the cuts, and they're sitting there counting their money and distributing it to these other ones. Like, what an incredible skill set for a young person to develop. And it's going to come the time when, he's not as cute anymore. He's in the scout group back home, Matt, and I got really upset. I didn't say anything, but I got really upset with the scout group because they wanted to go raise money for the scouts. And so they were going to sell apples. So they got all the kids together and they had apples donated or bought apples in bulk or something. I don't know how they got them. And they went in front of the grocery store and they sold apples in front of the grocery store. What lessons are you teaching these children? What lessons are you teaching these children? Every single person walking into that grocery store knows that you can also buy apples inside of that grocery store cheaper than you can buy apples from the kids. And so these kids are only selling these apples because they look cute. Well, they're not always going to be cute. So what lessons are you instilling to these young people? What are we doing? What are we doing? And so I do think that the public school system, the academics is really, really important, but I think that there's so much more to it. You don't need to travel. You don't need to get out of there, in order to learn those things. But God, there's more to life than addition and subtraction and reading. And there is socialization in schools, but a lot of schools are very homogeneous and the world is not. And I think it's important to figure that out sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Jonathan, before we go, obviously we're here to talk about your book, and we're here to make sure they land on people's doorsteps from Amazon or wherever they're going to get them from. Right. Just tell us why this is your best one yet, and what and why people need to buy it and what they're going to learn.
This is by far my best one yet. Nothing even, you know when you take on a project where every single thing that you've done before, you kind of become embarrassed to look at because this project is just it's so far ahead of anything that you've done before that you almost can't even look at the stuff previously. That's the kind of project that this book has been. Look, the book is called The Obvious Choice. It's timeless lessons on profit, success, and finding your way. That whole story that I told of, when I fired everybody and started over. At that point, we had helped over 65,000 people through our products and services build their own businesses. And yet I was so stuck in the sunk cost in all of the ways that I was doing things previously that I could not act on all of the lessons that I knew to be true from all of this experience that I had. When I started over, when all of this stuff happened, I was able to put into play and test out all of these new lessons. And so this book is the 15 lessons that I was really able to put into play to build it out. And, social media, just as one way to build this, it's akin to a savings account. And I think we have to look at it that way. I think you should always be creating content, but like a savings account, you invest into it when you have excess time and capital. You hope that it kicks off interest in the interim, but you don't depend on dividends to fulfill your short-term needs. In fact, the more withdrawals that you make in the short term of a savings account, the less the money compounds. That's social media. You cannot build a business model that depends on your content on your social media to get you customers in the short term. That is an inefficient way to build a business. And that's a lot of the reasons why people are burning out. And, that's just one example. And of course, there are frameworks of where content fits in, where it doesn't, but also with money and why you should become, I call it famous to the family, before you try to become famous on the internet. What is the fastest, easiest, simplest way to get customers that is the most profitable? You do that first. That's what this book is about. And then you can decide to expand in adjacent ways later, or not. Some people do, some people don't. The book is available anywhere. It's HarperCollins. You can get it in Kindle, audio, hardcover. Buy the book. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter at It's Coach Goodman. If you don't absolutely love it, you can send me a message and I'll send you back 100% of what you spent on it. Either way, you can send me a message. I'd love to talk to you.
Well, look, Jonathan, it's been a pleasure having you, buddy. I have been lucky enough to read to read a few of the first chapters that I have secretly had on my Google Docs. So I'm looking forward to the real one finding its way all the way over here to Dubai. We're going to put we're going to put the links in the show notes. Obviously, it's Jonathan Goodman on all things social. And thanks a lot for being here, buddy. I'm very lucky that I got to meet you this way. Looking forward to reading the book fully myself, and I'm following you more and learning more about your journey.
Appreciate you, Matt. Good to chat, man.
Thanks a lot, buddy. Take care.